transitioning it out. It didn't go away immediately, but we did basically sunset it, and it transitions out of existence. So we will succeed in getting rid of that. There are a number of them that come to mind that are of concern. You've got some local utility taxes on top of the state utility tax. Only about 20 jurisdictions have that. That's a concern where it's not really a uniform sales tax, and you have that's a concern. But the biggest one, I think, is the franchise tax, cable franchise tax. There's a 1% that was added in 2005 to your cable bill for public education or information channel. That should be repealed.
Thank you.
It's misused.
Mrs. Medina.
You know, again, I'm going to continue to advocate for major tax reform. I think what we see is more and more need for revenue for more and more government service, and rather than looking at the structure that we have in place, we add another tax. And so we do indeed have, I think it's actually over 63, and that bill that I mentioned earlier that Representative Lavender introduced in this last session identifies the piecemeal process. It is a state tax code that picks winners and losers, that taxes industry in a very inequitable, unfair, and unjust way. We need tax that is not punishment and not reward, but is a fair and just share of the cost of local and state government. So that bill actually calls for all of those taxes to be eliminated and to be replaced with a fair and flat tax. We've got a lot of work to do, but we'll be advocating in that way.
Thank you. Mr. Aiken.
All right, now, the candidates will have 3 minutes each to rebut, initiate a topic not covered, or to finish a point on topic from the question and answer. Representative Hildebrand, I believe it's your turn this time. And also, too, you'll have a 2-minute closing statement as well.
Thank you. I want to finish mentioning 2 points. Sorry. I want to finish the 2 points left over that I wanted to mention. Customer service, which I went through. The second one being, we have a very unfair and inconsistent application and administration of the Texas tax code. In fact, in some cases, we're more unfair than the IRS is, believe it or not. Give you an example of that. Interest rate. We charge a higher interest rate to taxpayers when they owe us money, when they're late on a tax payment, and interest is added to that, then we pay them when we owe them a refund. The IRS did that for many, many years, but when George W. Bush was president, we had Republicans in the House and the Senate, that was finally fixed. But in Texas, we still do that. Last session, we tried to fix it. I'm proposing 6 specific items, including interest rate parity, in a taxpayer Bill of Rights. Please visit my website, harveyfortexas.com, and you can see it in detail. I'm going to read a few of those since I've got some time. It addresses audit fairness, simplifies the refund process, adjudication before payment or otherwise known as pay to play. If you have a dispute with the Comptroller's office and you reject their claim and you appeal it, whether you go through the administrative process or district court, you have to pay the taxes ahead of time. But guess what? As I mentioned earlier on interest rate parity, if you win and they owe you a refund, they're not paying you the same interest rate as you should be entitled to. A defined time period on the statutes of limitations for audits, and also to make those 6 points permanent, I propose we put it in the state constitution. We can implement this both partly by rule, which I will do if I become comptroller. I will begin that process and propose rules to implement some of it. Some of them have been done in the past that way. I will ask members of the legislature to carry bills to put it in statute, and I will also ask the legislature to put it in the state constitution, so we don't have to worry about a future comptroller or a future legislature having an easy way to change that. Also, the IRS. The Obama administration has a target on Tea Parties and conservative grassroots organizations like this one. They also have a target on Texas businessmen, and for that matter, American businessmen, that have to be conservative and Republican and make contributions to Republican presidential candidates, or someone like Ted Cruz. And they're looking for those kinds of conservatives, organizations, individuals to target and to punish I want to use the IRS's resources, existing authority, and its established communication channels with the IRS to fight that. I want to fight IRS abuse, and I will use the Comptroller's office to do it. You can see more about that on my website also. And I appreciate you all being here.
The reality in Texas today is that our budget is $197 billion. That is up nearly $8 billion over the last biennium. 35% of that, 68, almost $69 billion is federal tax money that we use to fund state and local government services in Texas. As we've already mentioned, the level of local debt, $234 billion, makes us the second highest local debt burden in the country. I want to lead on advocating for fair and just tax policy. I can't say it enough. Tax, we've got to quit using tax as carrot and stick, as reward and punishment, and start to look at policies when they're proposed as to whether or not they move us from this very divisive, unjust system towards one that is more fair. I want to seek to advocate for free markets and serve as a advocate or a resource to the legislature and the people. And finally, I want to advocate for measures that will protect the Texas economy. Texas has the 14th largest economy in the world. There is little reason that we should have any dependence on an outside entity. We talk about being a sovereign state, and yet 35% of our budget comes from Washington, D.C. We're not going to fix that, and frankly, in most of our lifetimes. But we need to start working on it and begin to start peeling that back. I think we also have to, as I mentioned earlier, begin to ask the question, are there things that we could be doing as a state to protect our economy in the face of the economic uncertainty that occurs at the national and at the global level? Representative Giovanni Capriglione had a bill in that vein in this last session that talked about setting up a gold bullion depository for Texas. As we were having some discussions about that, there was a gentleman there that was very much in favor of that. He said, Deborah, this is a really good proposal. I said, that's great. I'm glad that horse is out of the gate and headed down the track. What else do we need to do? And he said, we need to look at state banking regulations. We've got to be asking those sorts of questions so we know how to move our state and how to protect our state. Our place in the United States should be one of leadership, not one of dependence. Texas must exercise her sovereignty and leverage our economy to serve as a beacon of the great ideas of history, leading to a more free and prosperous society for us all. There's not another state, there's not another place on the face of the earth that has the human, intellect, talent, capital, and the natural resources that we do. Texas ought to be shining, and we have been in a place of mediocrity. We can do better. I want to lead on that.
The points that I would like to reemphasize, but very, very shortly, is that who do you want to serve you? Who do you want to actually be in an office? Someone who's going to be accountable to you. And I think it goes back to the question is, what is the person's character? What is their background? What is their experience? And who are they? Are they someone who is going to look you in the eye and give you an honest answer, even if they know that the question that they're going to respond to may be of a different opinion, but an honest answer? Imagine that. That's what people deserve. That's what they should have. I would disagree that I wouldn't necessarily give all state employees a state credit card. I respect that. Okay. Well,
I said that they can't use their own private card. They have to use the state card, which would give points back to states.
Is this your time?
Well, you misstated it.
Okay, but the fact is I don't care if they use their own credit card to get their own points. Maybe that's bureaucratic, but I don't want a bunch of people running around with state credit cards. I don't trust them. So that would be my personal opinion. I don't think they should. So I'm not going to give everybody in my business a credit card, and I wouldn't do it on the state level either. But I think the question is you want someone who is going to be honest, integrity. Thank you for letting me be here today, and thank you for coming out.
All right, now, Candace will have 2 minutes to ask for our vote. Mrs. Medina, you're first, please.
You know, the media and pundits love labels: conservative, libertarian, Tea Party activist, and even inflictor of the comfortable within my own party. I've been called many things during my work in the bright glare of public light, but never an insider, a sellout, or a quitter. That's why I'm proud to be a candidate for Comptroller. Of all the agencies in state government, the Comptroller must be an independent agent working for the people. I know it is the most powerful position in the state when it comes to protecting our hard-earned tax dollars. The Comptroller has an important job to answer to the people as it should be. She determines how much the state can spend, how much in taxes can be legally imposed, which taxes can be dismissed, and reports how many programs the state is wasting money on. I'm asking for your vote to serve as Comptroller because we need someone then in that office that will fight against ever-increasing state budgets, fight for fair and just tax policy and free markets, run an open and honest agency that protects taxpayers' privacy and the state's economy in the face of growing U.S. economic uncertainty, and finally respects the will of the people to just do the right thing. I respect the desire of my fine opponents to be Comptroller, but for too long, this office has been the home of professional politicians who know their way from the agency to the Capitol better than their way to meet the constituents who put them there. For the best part of a decade now, I have traveled this state talking with folks who work hard and pay their taxes. I know the trials and tribulations people face meeting their obligations. If I'm elected, you won't need tax lawyers to represent you. Mine will be an open door. All will be welcome. And I am glad that you have welcomed me here today. I need your support. I look forward to visiting with you afterwards. Thank you.
Senator Hager.
My name is Glenn Hager, and I would like to be your next Texas Comptroller. As I mentioned, I'm a sixth-generation Texan. I grew up in a very simple means on a family farm, which actually I still farm with my dad and cousin today. I may have went off and got a college education and moved to Katy, Texas, where my wife's family's from, but I went back to working with my family. Why? Because that's where my values are at. My values are about teaching my 3 kids there's faith in God, that there are traditional family values, that there is something called a handshake, where you reach out and you shake somebody's hand and you look them in the eye and you give them an honest answer. The one thing that I tell my 3 kids that does not happen in my house is we don't allow liars whatsoever. Or as my wife may ask my little son, she said, "Now do I see your nose growing, Pinocchio?" The fact is you want the same thing in your elected officials. And yes, I served in the Texas House and I served in the Texas Senate. Serving in the legislature does not qualify you to be Comptroller, in my personal opinion. It may give you insight to things, but it's your real life experiences. When I leave Austin, where do I go? I go right back into my district. Why? Because it's the people of Texas that keep you grounded. You get somebody who is humble and somebody who knows that you have to be honest with people, regardless if they like the answer or they don't like the answer. As your Comptroller, I'm going to work for you. Why? Because it's your office. It's not my office. It might be my name on the door, but you know what? That means the responsibility is on my shoulders. That's where the responsibility lies. And so I would ask for your support. I would ask for your vote. But most importantly, what I would like is to shake your hand and have a conversation with you. So I'd ask that you learn more about Glenn Hager, and thank you for letting me be here. Most importantly, thank you for coming out on such a bitter, colder day. So thank you.